Okay, we'd like to call this meeting to order and thank everyone for being here today on such short notice. I would like to, at this time, dispense with the unnecessary items and only focus on the Homeless Action Committee today. So we will be dispensing with the Pledge of Allegiance, Community Health Fair Committee report, Western University report, and go from a roll call down to the Homeless Action Committee. So as we do this, we'd like to go around and announce everybody that is in the room and everybody that is remote. So starting, Mr. Gorley. Go ahead, Legia.
Towery.
Larry Horton, Health Committee.
Brock Byers, Family Assistance and Resource Center Group.
Shirley Bird, Family Assistance and Resource Center Group.
Diane Gerson, City Council.
Ken Bronson, Foster resident.
Sean Morgan, Police Services Officer.
Jeff Lynn with the city.
Robert Snyder with the city.
Bob Dalton, Health Committee.
And Mr. Knowles.
Dick Knowles, committee member.
Okay, is there anybody else online? Okay, thank you. And I'm Lisa Gorley, City Councilor and Chair of this committee. So at this time, we will go straight to the Homeless Action Committee.
To introduce you.
Well, or however you want to do it.
All right. Since I'm the chairman of the committee, I'll say welcome everybody and thank you for being here. There's been a lot of changes going on over the last week or so, and I'm sure that Ray is going to bring us up to speed on all those changes. So I'm just going to turn the meeting over to him and let him go for it.
So all the members of the committee, and I believe the council, all received emails from me. I think what's important to stress about what's going on first and foremost is the setback I'm going to tell you about. I don't think it was anybody's fault. The county has been extremely supportive in our efforts to try and move this facility forward. So what happened is we all got a little excited, started to move as quickly as possible to get this done. And luckily, and I think it was actually the attorney, Gene Carandy, said, well, wait a minute, this was part of the old mill property, which has some environmental issues, and we need to go back and take a look at where this piece sits. And so they did, and unfortunately we found out that it has not received any kind of designation from DEQ or the EPA. So the positive that came out of this is when the county went through and started to recount the history of this parcel, and I guess I should clarify, it's the knife-shaped property south of the railroad tracks, next to the Public Works Yard. It'd be west of the Public Works Yard off of 24th Avenue. What they did discover is that when they had some soil sampling done a year ago, while that company was here, they said, can you just go ahead and do some down there as well? So they at least have some preliminary data. The other thing that they discovered is that they were given money to do a phase 1 assessment in a grant. And so they have actually started that process. As soon as they found out that we needed to go through the steps and they found out they had the money, they just went out to their consultants and said, let's start that phase 1. So they are moving as quickly as they can to try and move it forward. The phase 1 will tell us what steps we need to take after that, which may be next to nothing or maybe significantly more significant. We won't know. But that being said, the city I can't advise the council, and I don't think anybody can advise the council to take control and tenure of property that has unknown environmental issues on it. It's just a huge liability. And if you don't know, once you are on the hook for a piece of property, you are on the hook in perpetuity forever. And there's generally almost no way to get off that list. So with that being said, we staff came together, put our heads together, looked for different places that we might be able to utilize for this facility. We reached out to some private property owners Haven't gotten any responses back from them that I understand. And the one piece of property we kind of all came up with that the city owns is right here behind City Hall. It's already fenced on 3 sides. It has access to power. It has access to water. It's asphalted. We really believe that anything that we need to do back there is something that we can, for the most part, pick up and take with us if we find a different permanent site. So we've as staff have really racked our noggins over, where else we can put this, and understanding that there's some time. We want to do this quickly. What is going on at their current location behind the old city hall and next to the fire district is disrupting that neighborhood significantly at times. And I need to also say that the fire district, their volunteers, their employees, and the members of that community have been exceptionally gracious when they have come in and talked to us or called, particularly the community members, and we explained the situation to them. They've been very understanding, actually, and appreciative of at least the efforts that we're trying to make. So, really, I guess with that, what we're asking is for at least a consensus from this committee to make this a temporary site out behind us. It would be along the western edge of the property. So it would really not butt up against any of the neighborhoods. It's a vacant field to both sides of it. We would have some security concerns, and we would have to address that with fencing, cameras, gates, various gates that we're conjuring up. Joe's been doing some homework and some research on how to do that. But I think there's going to be a lot of things that have to go into it, but we can't come up with a better option. And quite frankly, depending on how long that takes, environmental reporting and cleanup can take years, as we know. This may be more than temporary. It may be a semi-permanent or even become permanent. Who knows? Until we can find another option. But again, the good thing is, I think whatever we put in there, for the most part, is going to be able to go with us. So,
Questions?
So are we going to go ahead and just use the pallets that we've made, put the tents on there until we can get the other things built?
That would be up to the committee and up to FAC. So one of the things that's in your packet is draft agreements.
Yes.
We've looked at the draft rules. That would be the next step of working with FAC on the model and getting down into those kinds of details. My assumption is, we'd start with those platforms and then work our way into the
So we're leveraging, there actually aren't enough platforms, but we're leveraging that. The intent is to build out all of the huts. And I think it's just, what is the completion criteria to initiate the launch, in a sense, that we all agree to. So if the decision is, well, let's launch the tents with the event tent and do some of that, then we need to, as a group, kind of assess, does that make sense? Does it, ensure the intent and safety and all those considerations? But we're fairly flexible on that, as far as our intent is to start immediately. We're looking at anywhere between 1 month and 3 month completion. And when I say completion, what does that mean? If we get 5 people, or do we have to have a minimum of 20 people, or what is the minimum criteria? Because once we launch, we have to staff it. And that's the expensive piece, really, of this plan. The initial costs, setup costs, and then staffing, of course, for everyone. And so, you don't want to fully staff a situation if we're only going to have 2 campers or some number of campers. So we want to make sure that we all agree, we want it to look this way or feel this way, and go from there.
And so what type of a temporary facility would you be able to, or could we come up with for instead of having to move the big trailer, their big thing over here and then move it again.
Yeah, we're not intending to move that facility over, really. I think in our conversation right now is we'll be leasing a mobile office space, like the work trailers, I guess they call them initially, because like you said, you have to disassemble it, move it, reassemble it, and then unless this does, as we progress, say this makes the best sense, let's stay here, things like that. But really that operation was intended really for what we call a permanent site. So this is kind of the permanent temporary, or we have to be kind of cautious on what we call it because it impacts how we get grants and stuff. So I'm looking into how do we name it so that we can qualify for a lot of the housing type grants that are available. There's going to be another $110 million available here very soon for shelter like environments and stuff. And we just want to make it as flexible as we can for Sweet Home to qualify for those types of grants.
So Ray, knowing our council, I think first they're going to need to know the causes and effects of this and the why, be reminded why that we have to have this facility, that it actually protects our community. I also think that a brief statement as to the pros and cons of doing this action would be important. I don't think that's a difficult task. Within just a couple of minutes, a person can put together something like that. But I think they're going to need to the pros and cons of moving something right behind the city hall. But at the same time, I believe if we focus on that instills trust that we're going to have a quality facility if it's in that proximity, and we're trusting that it's not being put into somebody's neighborhood. It's right here. And so it may not be ideal in the bigger scheme of things, but it should let them know that we're going to do our best effort. And that needs to be conveyed verbally to them, and they need to have it in writing, because I think sometimes it's hard for people when they're overwhelmed with a new idea to track everything. And so just, this is the pros and cons of doing this. And like I said, I think we could all write that down really quick, and so something for them in the next council meeting would be good. And an action plan. If we're going to do this, before we hand over the key, what are we going to do to make that happen? Because we have had some conversation that there is power there, but there is no sewer and water. But we put in the sewer and water, that actually enhances the value of that property long term anyway. So it is a benefit to us to go ahead and do that. And so I think some of those things like the beautification piece, so that it looks appropriate from the outside. What are we going to do with people not hanging out at the city hall? But what does that look like? So we really need to have an action plan that it will dispel a lot of pushback or problems if we have that. And it doesn't have to be pages and pages. It can be a single blurb with the pros and cons. This is what it is on a single page. Okay? Does that sound right?
Yeah, I do. I
Okay.
just, so because we're trying to expedite this.
Yes.
Today's Friday.
I know.
We're going to the council Tuesday.
Yes, I know.
So I'm going to need some help with that.
Okay.
Put all of that together. I know Legia actually started a really good outline draft version of why we're doing this. We're trying to create a web page within our website so that people could see. It would list the legal precedents, the current legislation in Oregon, link to Walla Walla, have some pictures, and kind of explain why we're doing what we're doing. So maybe we can start with that. She did a pretty good job getting that started.
For the public, I think that's a really good idea, because we have to have public buy-in, because this will cause pushback.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if we message it right and we tell our story, then we'll get stronger buy-in than if we were putting it somewhere else. And so I'm talking something as simple as almost bulleted items, but these are the pro things, these are the con things, and this is the plan of how we're going to get there. And they're going to ask about costs. So we don't know hard costs, but we can say tentatively this is what we estimate that it will be. So,
and actually with what's already there, I think FAC is pretty much got the funds committed.
Yeah,
All
we've
they need is an
committed more
agreement.
funds. We have approximately $450,000 for this year.
Okay, because we are talking fencing on the one side.
So can you put together what you want to, or what you're going to have on the site then?
I'm not really
type of
interested in
thing?
that.
Well,
Yeah,
it would be nice.
That's part of the
Okay.
one-page
Oh, it is?
summary of what it will eventually look like. Now, that's where, as you mentioned, we need to, the pros and cons, I guess. It has to look a certain way, or everybody has an impression of how it looks. So if we move them like next week, I can put an event tent, and we can put tents in, and we can do things, but it looks a lot different than the Conestoga.
Exactly.
And we need to kind of be in agreement that really, I mean, we're going to launch the Conestoga builds as soon as possible. I've already met with Home Depot. We already have a builder that's taken over the whole project and such, but it does take time to build those units and such.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and there's no reason we can't start bringing and setting up the interior, but at the same time, put the slats in the fences and put in the other
exactly,
fence.
all the other
Multiple
dynamics.
things going on at one time. That's the reality of it. But I also think that our counselors need to be well informed of what that looks like, and because they don't know, they're. Okay.
I think it's something that I think you've hit the nail on the head. While we've had this discussion in the council, we've shown pictures of what it looks like. I think we need to continue to do that and put that messaging out, which kind of leads me to, we need to name the facility. And I think that's going to be a vital piece of that messaging. Some people call it a homeless camp. I think that's not a term we want to use. And we're hoping that it's something that's more than a sleep center. It's going to be a 24-hour facility, not just someplace they can go in the evening, but a 24-hour managed facility. And in my mind, I refer to it as a managed homeless facility. But there might be better language we can use, because I think it's really important that the community understand that this is not your typical homeless camp.
It is a managed.
It is a managed
Corvallis
facility.
has their Corvallis Outreach, and that's a really good name. I don't know whether you want to do a Sweet Home Outreach or something similar to that, but the Corvallis Outreach is a really good name.
Yeah, I'm a little hesitant with the total emphasis on homeless, because we do provide services, all kinds of services for people that have rent issues, people that have power and electricity, low income
Well, that's
issues.
why
And so the intent for the permanent is to be a community center to bring our partners in.
If it's a Sweet Home Outreach Center or something like that,
Or community resource center.
Yeah, we can call it all kinds of things.
Well,
I
we
mean,
need
I
to.
agree. We just do somewhat need to be careful again in the formal naming, because it does impact grants. If you say it's an emergency shelter, which is kind of what we're, in a sense, it is, you only qualify for certain funds. And really, we want to be as flexible, and we're going after transitional housing funds and all kinds of other things. But this committee, the Sweet Home Committee, the subcommittee, can work on that for you. They're your community members.
Yes, Ken.
What is Walla Walla calling their facility?
What is Walla Walla
Well,
calling their facility?
it's run by the Walla Walla Alliance for the Homeless.
And it is called a sleep center. That's why we
Yeah.
kind of used that name initially.
So is it a homeless center or a sleep center?
It's
It's 24/7.
It's
Yeah,
24/7. It was originally for migrant workers. It was designed for them to go to work and then have a safe place to sleep at night. And then it transitioned to a homeless environment where people could go and sleep at night safely. I don't think they'll be as comprehensive as we will on the other services that we intend, because we'll have more space, we'll have a community center, some other things, at least as our intent. We are expanding this.
Alliance for the Homeless.
That's the nonprofit group.
Right.
On their website, they refer to it as a sleep center.
Okay.
You're going to be running.
So Community Alliance Resource Center is CARC. Does that fit your needs?
We'll put it as the
Because you're providing services that are well
Community
beyond.
Alliance Resource Center.
Does it have to have the term housing, some kind of?
I don't know. I'll look into some of that, but again, we're fairly flexible. I mean, to be honest with you, it may become the Jeff Hetherington Center. Because he's already given us $100,000 personal donation, and he's looking at funding this whole thing in perpetuity. So we'll see on, you have the whatever stadium, we may have that aspect, but there's multiple names, like you saw there.
Well,
so we
come
just
back to us when you decide something, and we'll look at it then.
It needs to make sense for you guys
but
too.
We could have a bold text and a subtext.
Yeah, agreed.
So I think that's a kind of a minor thing. Gersa, concerns with what the council's going to need to get behind this.
Just real quick, if you add housing in there, it becomes CHARC
Shark.
instead of CARC.
You didn't have any
We're
concerns?
flexible in the name though.
No, I don't have any concerns on at the moment. I do like the use of the word outreach though, because
Outreach.
I think
Yes.
that implies much more of what we're trying to do here. So if we could incorporate that, I think it would be
Just so you know, Corvallis Outreach is a homeless shelter.
Right,
And
but we don't-
it's much more than that. It's got all the things included in that. So they named that one really good.
Well, even if there's a word that means the same thing, we don't want to use outreach, but I like that concept that it's
Yeah.
much more. What is an encompassing word that would do that?
One of the things that's always been brought up before is the fact is that it needs to be close enough. It needs to be close enough to downtown so that the people there can get to all of the amenities of being downtown. This is not downtown. You build it out here, you do it all out here. Are people going to come? I mean, is it going to? The city hall works for like the old city hall works because it's right downtown. I mean, you're within walking distance. It's always been brought out that you got to be within walking distance of all of the stuff. So if you build it out here, it might be great, but are the people going to be here that you want here?
That is a big concern. And I look at the proximity. We have a little convenience market here. We have a semi-open restaurant across the street. We have a hardware store down the street, and the community, a lot of businesses coming this way, especially health services. So
Bus stop right out in front too.
yeah.
And then Walla Walla, they are really far out from everybody. And the way they got around it was the bus stop is right there.
And we will be providing bus coupons or working out a deal with the bus company as well.
Have we met? Will this meet all the criteria that the state requires?
I believe it does.
Okay.
I can't think of anything it doesn't, and quite frankly, I don't know that we have any other option, and that's something that the courts would take into consideration as well. What were your options? Well, we chose the best option we had, other than going in and we're not going to commandeer people's property for this type of a project. Of course, we're not going to do eminent domain. So, what do we have available to us? This is it.
Larry?
Yeah, one of my big concerns is that if we just take the tents where they are and put the tents over here, the rules that they have down in their tent city right now, are they thinking that it's going to be the same rules if they bring their tents over here and all their other stuff with them?
Yeah, that won't.
That
isn't. We already have procured the tents, and that if it is the tent solution, but
I guess I'm torn between expediting this thing as quick as possible, or at least waiting long enough to put up 10 to 15 of the structures so that everyone can see what those structures look like, The rules go with the structure goes with the structures. And I think in my mind, there's something for the clients that would say, this isn't the same place. This isn't the same way of operating. This is different. And so I think it's imperative that we find out from the contractor, what kind of time frame are we really looking at to get 10 of them up? I think you said that he was talking 5 a week or something like
5 a
that?
day.
5 a day.
So I'm not sure that's a
That's-
critical path item, but we'll confirm that with him. It could be even, a critical path item could be 2x4s or plywood. I don't know, but we're working on those aspects now that we have a intent going forward.
The platforms that were built for last winter were 4x8 sheets of plywood raised up off the ground 5 inches, 6 inches. And those can be used if we put 2 beside and 1 at the end, then we have an 8x12 unit, which is, I think the ones in Walla Walla were 8x13 or, I mean, they were awfully close to that 8x12. So I think what we're looking at constructing, right now we have the platforms to put probably 13 to 14 of them together. And my thought would be we try and get those 13 to 14 built before we do any moving.
I agree.
And I think that we can get enough volunteers that if this gentleman is willing to cut out the pieces, because there are pieces, I think I counted 6 or 8 pieces, and then you screw them together. I mean, it's not a lot of work to put these things, well, it's work, but it's not overwhelming.
Yeah, Walla said they can assemble 3 to 5 a day.
So also to get water into that facility, how long will it take this Public Works to be able to do that?
So it already has water. There is water in that back building, I'm
Okay.
told. There would have to be some plumbing to get it over, but my recollection is it wouldn't be that difficult to get water over there. Sewer, however, is an issue.
Okay.
And the closest sewer line, as I recall, is in the highway, which when you're going into the highway means you're dealing with ODOT. But on a temporary basis, you can get the large tanks that you can just have emptied, twice a week or
Yeah,
whatever
every
that may
summer at the
require.
Jamboree, we have, I don't know how many of those porta potties with the portable systems set up.
Right.
So it's not like they're new to the community. We know what they are. We know how well they work. They're very effective. They can be dropped and hooked up within a day. I don't see that as being an issue at all.
They don't look bad.
Is
No.
it, though, I'm concerned about the logistics of moving in buildings to facilitate this community that's going to be in there, and the ability to do laundry in that, and there is wastewater with the laundry and showers and all of these other things that are going on. Is it practical to do that when you have people on site walking around? Are you going to be able to dig under the buildings to put this in, or do we need to have that in place first, at least on this end, going that way to where we can hook up when we're ready, when their ODOT's ready?
So, just to clarify, each building does not have water sewer.
But
There would be a communal structure of some kind
Yes.
that would have water sewer.
yes,
To get this off the ground, we're probably looking at ADA toilets and the portable shower unit.
So the portable shower unit's being worked on, but Plan A is we have the Nazarene Church. They have shower day every week.
okay.
Transportation, we have the bus. What else did you mention? You mentioned what?
You have laundry
Laundry.
facilities for
Laundry,
blankets and that kind of
well,
thing?
we currently don't, and I'm not sure of the dynamic around the office, because they're like those office, single wide trailer office units. I'm not sure if it's electrified enough for laundry or not, but we are working out a deal, and we do give out tokens for the laundry here. It does become complex. If they have a lot, how do you get it there and things like that? There's a little bit of logistic aspect, but there's always kind of a plan A and a plan B for those kinds of items. The sewer, as he mentioned, it's literally a tank with a pump, and then the sewer trucks come in and dump it each week. So that's probably the tact we'll do instead of going from a sewer all the way in and in, at least initially.
And then, if you recall, Walla Walla, they only wash the bedding like once a week. So it's the sheets, the blankets, and the pillowcases.
You're correct. They don't do client laundry. They actually are doing laundry for the bedding, which is and such.
But that's blankets for 30 different huts.
Right.
Oh, you're
And
right.
then-
They do
and-
laundry every day.
And they had the little hand washer that was
Right.
actually quite effective, but at the same time is still laundry for 30 huts.
Yes.
And towels. And so I'm assuming they're going to do towels because
For our environment, then, yeah, we would have to
Yeah.
make a provision. If we have laundry, it helps us facilitate it. We would evaluate it based on resource and cost to put a laundry facility here versus us loading it into our truck each day or each week or whatever and going to the laundry ourselves and doing the laundry for our facility. So we have a plan A and a plan B.
and this is a logistic that we can figure out
Oh, yeah,
as we go forward.
Once we get the approval to, yes, this is the site, then we'll start working out all of those logistics with Brock and the Public Works crew, and we'll get it all laid out as quickly as possible.
Because it's easier to lay pipe when there's no building in the place. And
Correct.
so that's
Yes.
my concern.
Right.
And so, all right.
Oh,
Yeah. So anything else? Do we have zoning or anything to consider on this?
It's a government function, and we have the ability to do government functions.
This is also zone commercial
We have,
in this
no,
area.
well, yes.
In commercial, you can have,
Well, the state of Oregon passed legislation that you can't use zoning to stop a facility from
well,
going
that's
there.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Commercial, you can have outright use of,
Right now in the state of Oregon, you can do it.
you can do
in your
residential,
backyard.
anything, yeah.
We could come to your backyard and put in such a facility if you'd like.
That's
except
this.
in industrial areas.
I don't
No,
believe you can stop
it's
it there
anywhere.
either. It's
Right
anywhere that
now,
it's
until
deemed
July.
fitting. You can put it, yeah.
Till July.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe so.
It was,
But we have the way that our development code is now, we don't have a government. So in order for all of our government space, the city has given a variance to allow for governmental use, and we have that for this property. We did it before we built it.
Okay. So, Dick, do you have any questions?
So, Madam Chairman, if I may,
Okay.
I would like to,
There you are.
You have feedback?
on? Okay. I would like to support Dr. Horton's idea about changing the culture. That it is important for them to recognize that this is a new situation and they need to adapt to that new situation. And we know that if you change their environment, things will change. If we bring the same environment in, the same environment will stay. So personally, I would like to support that suggestion.
I think that was the key element, is having it mostly intact before anybody moves in, and that helps them make that transition. Dick, do you have any questions or something you'd like to add?
I don't. This is very instructive. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. So at this time, we're going to be asking for a motion to move this to council action, but I'd like to hear from everybody their thoughts on this. And so, Jim, do you have anything to add?
No, I like the idea of having the huts made before we move in. I like that, or at least most of them. Sounds like a week they can be enough that we can start.
Dr. Horton?
Yeah, I think that the sooner we can get started building these things, the better. And we could actually, move the people over as we get 5 ready. move 5 people over, maybe? Or do
You know,
want it all
I
at
need to
once?
get with our builder. We've had so many starts and stops that we've actually told our volunteers and all our groups with that, you know, we're holding off. We'll believe it when we see it, and it's getting closer. So I do need to meet with Patrick Rogers and coordinate. But the intent is, once we say go, we're going to construct it as absolutely quick as we can, assemble our volunteers. The Rotary's part of it. So I'm fairly confident we should be able to launch very rapidly.
Thank you.
If you're asking,
Okay.
so there is a contract addendum on here, and we haven't fully reviewed that, and there were
Okay.
possibly some items in the applicable laws and standards area that I'll need to review. And then addendum exhibit A, there may be some wording things that may need to be done there.
Are you talking about the draft agreement?
Yeah, the agreements. I just need to,
Yeah.
it overall looked good, but there was just a few.
This is the second draft after the first meeting.
Perfect. It looked
is
pretty good
a
overall.
draft.
Okay, perfect.
So you can change it any way you want. It's mostly, we had put together a lease, which I don't know would be appropriate here. So we'd have to work things around. We may just drop back, if you're gonna be here, just drop back to some sort of an agreement.
Yeah.
Type of deal. So stuff that I moved in one place, we can move in the other place, but that, and then while we're here, what is everybody's vision? Well, I got them all in the same room. What is everybody's vision on the power structure here? Are you guys good? I was delivered a draft FAC Sweet Home Sleep Center policy manual. Is that from you guys?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that was my concern about the applicable laws and standards, because it
Right.
mentions the subcommittee, which we're all in favor of. I wanted to confirm, like you're just suggesting, what is the
Right,
structure?
what's the
Because if they make a
relationship?
recommendation, we want to accept it, but if it goes against our core policy. So, for example, we are a secular organization. We're not a religious organization. But let's say the committee said, we want to make sure that this is associated with, we're going to do the teachings of God or something like that.
Right.
We couldn't accept that, because then that counters all of our
Understood.
grants, all of our funding, things like that. And so I just want to make sure that.
Do you see the group, the committee, as I've described in here, as a liaison between the council and you and the council? Are they, do they make recommendations? Or are they like, much like Walla Walla, where the city was hand in glove with the group that they're doing it with, and we're not that way.
So
In Walla Walla, my understanding is they funded it. I mean, you
Yeah.
worked, they paid
Yeah.
you, and
Yeah.
we're not in that situation. So I'm not talking about that. I just need more of an outline from somebody when we're drawing these up on what everybody's idea is who's doing what to whom.
So the mental model is that it is really kind of that agreement between the city and this group. We're really, I think legally, I put the group as like, this is a subcommittee of the council. I did it as the 7-person subcommittee of FAC's board, for which we have a member of our board that is responsible for this committee, and kind of that dynamic. But our intent and purpose is that this committee really represents the desires of Sweet Home. It's just, there is a gotcha, we need ultimate veto authority if they really go into a direction that we simply can't do because of our mission and charter that goes against our bylaws and what we're committed to. And that committee really is a member of Sweet Home it's their city members, business members, council members. We have a homeless advocate.
You're seeing them as somebody that says, you're doing this, what you're doing, let's just example, you're doing something at the sleep center, and it backfires. It
Yeah.
comes back and this committee looks at it and says, no, you should do it this way.
Exactly.
We recommend
Yep.
that you do it this way.
They own it in a sense, yeah.
Well, own it or recommend it.
It would
What I
be
don't
recommended.
understand
We
is-
have to ultimately own it because our insurance, all those aspects cover
Okay,
that.
so what I'm getting is mostly, and Ray will straighten me out on it, but later, but the point of it is the committee, whoever they are,
Mhm.
whether it's this committee or a different committee that is the committee, the
Mhm.
committee, to me, is looking more like a committee that makes recommendations to you, makes recommendations to the council, keeps
Mhm.
everybody informed.
Mhm.
But when it comes down to push to shove, there is your group, there is the city over here, but they're autonomous.
Yes, yes. And that
You're
if
gonna
there was an
enforce-
issue between the city and us, we would have to resolve
You're
that.
gonna enforce your policies in the place because you are have an
Responsible.
agreement that it's you,
Mhm.
right? Okay, because the whole thing is written up as in you're independent contractors, quote unquote.
Mhm.
You're on that and that's on one side. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And that was the major piece, yeah,
that's-
and you
that's
nailed it.
fine.
Yep.
You just need to know what everybody else was thinking in their brains on how they were thinking that was all set
Yeah,
up.
because we don't want to remove the council's authority and,
No,
you know,
but
they're a
everybody
participant, the
basically-
police have
Understood,
legal
but
authority.
Everybody's got their innate authority.
Yeah.
And nobody's moving that around.
No.
I mean, if something happens there, you're gonna call the police and say, I want this person removed.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I quote unquote own this place.
Mhm.
And I want them, they're not complying with the rule, I want them removed.
Right.
Are you gonna have you are not gonna have, is that the way it's gonna work? Which is fine.
Well,
but you have
actually,
your
in our
own security.
policies, when we do removals, certain types of removals require Ray's signature on those as city manager.
Okay,
So there is a safeguard in a sense, I mean, a condition for which,
And those
when
are
you
in
start
your
getting to
policy?
legal issues, it may impact
Okay,
Jeff and,
those are in your policy, man.
They're in the
That's
policy
the
manual.
idea.
yep.
Okay.
When there's a change in policy, who determines the change in policy?
I think the committee owns, in a sense, the policy. They would, if there's a change, then it's up for review. For us, we ultimately have to approve it. FAC does, but I do believe, you know, some changes may require, you know, Ray's participation or the council's participation or police action, depending on what they recommend. If they wanted to change, put in, you know, a coffee shop there as a fundraising thing, now you're changing the intent. It would require everybody's, you know,
So my
authority.
question, Robert, is that in this document where who has the authority to make policy decisions?
Well, basically, what I get out of it from listening to everything is nobody is usurping the other person's identity.
Mhm.
Okay, council still has all the power council has.
Mhm.
The police still have all the power they have, and these guys have all the power they have. Basically, this is more, these guys are, as I get it, are basically thinking of the situation where we had thought of at least one time before, is basically, it's like, it's coming closer and closer to the issue of we're renting them a place back here. We're leasing them a building. Whatever, and we're saying it's okay to have a sleeping center here. Now it's basically up to you. Now we have a committee over here that's going to oversee that, as I see, as making recommendations. If they see something wrong, or they said they're going to knock on their door and say, hey, this, and they're going to knock on council's door and say, hey, this, and we think as a committee, we've looked it all over and everybody, this is the decision that we think.
Mhm.
But that doesn't change his power to either say yay or nay. And it
We
doesn't
have ultimate veto
council's
power.
power to say yay or nay, either on whatever they had before. I mean, if the lease says we can throw you out in the next day, then the council will say, we don't like this policy, you can't be here anymore, here's your notice, you're gone. They can, on the same thing, say this isn't according to what we're supposed to be doing, we can't do this, and here's your notice, we're gone.
Okay.
The advantage
I'm-
of is that committee does contain the police agency is represented on that committee. The council is represented on that committee. Business is represented on that community. We have a homeless individual on that committee. So we're really trying to build a holistic approach to that committee. And
I just want to make sure that before we sign something, because everything's good till it's not. And then the committee doesn't necessarily need to deal with in the weeds, but anything's really egregious, that it doesn't accumulate to multiple egregious things before we have a problem. But like I said, everything's great until it's not. And I want to make sure that you're comfortable with what because this is a contract. And this committee doesn't have the authority to do that contract, but we recommend accepting a contract that it is appropriate.
I've got, I'll double check with Ray on it.
Okay.
The point being is, though, that what I see from people talking is the committee is just that. It doesn't innately have power to do anything.
Okay.
Other than make recommendations, going both ways. That's what I see out of it. Unless council delegates its authority to the committee to make its own rules, like the state does, with its groups. Always like the only thing that the other side of the coin of that is that if you, and I don't think if you delegate somebody else to make your rules and stuff for you, then that's the first thing that if anything when it goes bad, that's the first thing anybody points to. It was an improper delegation of authority.
Okay.
And so people do it all the time. You do it in government agencies all the time. You got books on people that write rules based on this ordinance. But if something goes whack, the first thing that they say is he didn't have authority to do that. And I don't think the council, from what I've got here, I don't think the council wants to have, it would all run back through council, I would think. The rules, the policy, all the other policies and manuals always run through council to get their blessing. So that you don't have that problem with delegation of authority. It went through council. So it's, it's either good or bad, but there's not that argument. I don't see that being done here as a delegation. So my point of it is I see this committee, and in writing it up, as a liaison committee, not as one who does their own policy.
Or an advisory.
An advisory
Advisory,
committee,
yep.
because these guys are going to do their own
We're
policy.
ultimately, the buck stops here.
Right.
With our executive director.
Right. And it isn't this middle group that's going to get, from what I see, that they aren't going to be like Walla Walla. They aren't going to be an overseer that says you do this policy.
Well, my concern was that FAC decides that they're going to change their policy. And the committee says, no, we really don't. We're not comfortable with that. We want to have some input on it. FAC says, but it's our policy. We're changing it. And so as this facility is behind our city hall and our committee comes to us and says, look, guys, we got a problem. And
it's up to the council, but yeah.
Are we protected?
I think you're correct. I would think in that situation, it's basically up to the council to say, here's our agreement that says we can terminate this, and that's what we have in here.
Okay.
Basically, at will, you're out of here.
So that's what I was looking for. Are we protected? And
Well,
so
the biggest protection in these agreements, even with you got the lease and whatever, the termination is basically an at-will situation between them and us, or whatever you guys agree to. If you agree to a certain amount of days, whatever. But usually on something like this, if something really blows up or whatever, you don't want that time frame in there. You just want gone.
yeah.
I mean, whether that's right or wrong, that's usually what people want. But the point being is on these agreements we've drafted, the termination is, if not immediate, it should be very, very swiftly, because that's what people are going to want at the time.
Okay, and so on the counterpart, so FAC is correct in their assessment, but we have people on the committee that aren't listening. We need to be able to have the process where people can come back on either side or whatever and come back to us and have that right and authority to say, hey, I'm okay, and come back to us so that we can make a recommendation to the city. Is that going to be protected under that as well?
Say it again.
That FAC, if they say we need this policy and the committee says, no, we don't like it, but
Right. Usually
they're
you
actually
have-
correct in what they
right.
need to do.
Usually you have in an agreement or whatever, something to the effect of, if it isn't just an immediate at will, something in there that says, well, like on a regular release, a lot of times you'll have like a 10-day grace period for somebody to pay the rent. They don't pay the rent on the first, you can't just kick them out. There is an actual 10-day grace period in there. It says right at least. You got 10 days in which to do it. So they're going to pay grace before it becomes default. Everything other than the rent usually runs on a 30-day. It says something to the effect, you'll see in contracts, you'll see something that says, you got 30 days in which you haven't been maintaining the outside of the pot. We're putting in a complaint, landlord-tenant type of deal, putting in a complaint that you do this. Well, you got 30 days in which to do it, or make it good, or start to make it good, or whatever, or you're in default, we can go from there.
Hey, Robert, I think what I was hearing over here was if the subcommittee, the advisory committee, is at odds with FAC, do they come back to this committee or back to the council? I think is what I was hearing here is.
I always assumed that there was, when we set this thing up, I always assumed we had them, we had a committee, whoever they were, of 7. That's what and we had the council. We didn't have them, this committee, council.
Sorry to interrupt. Thank you. I believe the council delegated the authority of dealing with the homeless issue to this committee.
That's
that
what,
correct?
My understanding.
Yeah.
Hearing.
So so I'm not sure how that fits in, but as I recall, council designated this project to this committee.
Right.
So.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a committee above a committee before you get to council, which is fine. But I don't call it a delegation just because they set up this committee.
Right.
This committee is just like any other committee.
It's advisory.
It makes decisions.
Right.
It just refers back to council to
Sure.
make the decision.
Sure.
But we can set it up that way. I mean, you can have this committee on another committee to make before you get to the council.
If I could, Counselor, I think the key here, and I'm going to bring up a painful memory to several of us in this room. The key here is setting out our expectations in our agreement. So the city shall expect, it shall be neat and cleanly. There shall be no drugs and no alcohol allowed inside the facility. Similar to any other contract we've done. And we've had a contract recently that we've gotten out of or terminated because we didn't set those expectations 20 years ago. So I think the key is going to be that in this, we let FAC know and we let the committee know, here are our expectations. There will not be garbage on the grounds. There will not be garbage rubbish.
Yes.
There will not be laundry. There will not be, I think we set that up in this document as to what our expectations and the deliverables are. One of those deliverables might be that that FAC will work to have healthcare providers come to the facility once a month, whatever that might be. And those are things we would work on with them as we negotiate this. And we would just set those expectations. And then that would give us the ability to say, well, our agreement says, regardless of what the committee, the subcommittee, or FAC say, we all agreed to this at the get-go. And if what they're doing, this new policy, interferes with that, then we can all step in very easily and say, well, that's not going to fly.
I think that's a great example.
Yeah.
Let's say they did say you're required to bring in a doctor each month, and we go FAC. Well, we didn't make provision for that. We don't have that in our plan initially. No, and they could get upset, and then they can go to the health committee and say, please terminate this contract because we feel this is the most important thing. And then you can, you have the rights to terminate within 30 days.
But if we put that in there, we work with them beforehand, and before they sign the agreement, they know that we expect them to work to bring some health care into the facility. And they may not be able to do it the first
Well,
3-4 months.
Are you thinking of that? It's just a bigger, longer list of your scope of.
Correct. We just want to make sure the
Put it on
scope
the
of
scope.
deliverables
Okay.
is acceptable, and if you do that work up front, it curtails all of the issues that you're concerned about. It's when you don't think of some, and there will be those things. There is in every contract. Something comes up, and the council may say, hey, I'm getting this feedback from our community and from our constituents. We would work down through, and then there'd be an addendum to the contract of, hey, there's some stuff going on, we need to fix this. And then we would agree on an addendum, and we'd move forward.
Yeah, I mean, a good example is, let's say there's such an uproar over it being there, and you guys vote and you go, we need to stop this. You have that right. You still retain those types of rights. So that, you may say, well, we want to move it over here, and then we have the right to go, nah, we're not going to do that. But
Does anybody have any questions on this subject? No? Okay. So,
You need a motion?
not yet. I want to
yet.
make sure everybody
Yeah, go around the
weighs
table.
in as we go around the room. Okay. Did you?
Yes. My concern mainly is for the people that are currently going to be using currently camping downtown. I think that we need to have the site set up and ready to go before we start moving anybody, because it would cause more trauma to do it halfway than it would to do it completely and new fresh start.
I agree. I think they need to feel good and in their mind have that fresh start, that they're actually moving up to be able to go there. So, Gerson? No? Okay. Okay. Sean?
Sounds good. Let's go.
Okay. Chief?
I have no concerns.
Robert? Okay. Dick?
I like the direction we're going in.
Thank you. Bob?
No, I'm liking everything I hear. I agree with the group and the idea that having the site prepared before moving will set up that for success versus failure, and change that culture, as you were talking about, getting people's mindset. This is better. I'm doing better. I feel good about it. I think that's important. But I also think that's very important from the perspective of what the community sees. Because that's one of the biggest things out there that still lingers in the background is the rock throwers out there that want to throw rocks at a project. And that community perception is going to be key to the success of this thing getting off the ground and moving forward. So, man, I bless that one 100% moving forward. I think, Robert, with what he was talking about in regards of insurance and liability and that kind of answered my question, because that was one of the keys. I was thinking, okay, what's the insurance and liability? And I had to dig a little deeper in this document, and I saw it sitting there. So that was out of the way. And as far as the language, whether this be the lease, the management process, that the language reflects that this is a living document and it can be changed at any given time as needed. I mean, documents change over time. And so long as we have that flexibility, I think that's important as well. And then having the ability to go back and review this document periodically, I think is important. If there's not a language in there that allows us to do that, that would be something I would think that the city would want, and a committee that maybe every 6 months, 3 months, there's a time stop check in there to say, are we on track? Is it working right? Do we need to modify it? So, I mean, that's no different if I was a landlord renting a house. I want to do a walkthrough every so often to make sure the house isn't changed. So, but other than that, I like the direction of what the group has done so far. Absolutely.
Thank you. So with that, we'll put Ray on the hot seat to make a motion to move this to the council. What language do we need within that motion?
I think at this point, it's asking the council, I would say, be a
Recommendation.
motion to recommend city council approve utilization of the city hall property for a temporary homeless facility.
Resource facility or homeless facility?
Resource, I would go with resource facility.
Okay.
Community resource facility of some type.
I
To be
would make
named.
that motion.
Motion has been made. Any discussion to that motion?
Seconded.
Motion is seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Any opposition? Motion passes. Okay. Any further discussion? This was the only thing we needed to talk about today. So seeing no further business and no, oh, Ray does
One
have
thing.
discussion.
So the purpose in the packet was to give everybody a chance to review this document.
Okay.
My hope is that we can come back at our next meeting and finalize this document. So,
Okay.
so if you have any input into the document or changes, maybe what we'll try and do is get well, you all have a version. You can mark out, put notes, and then get those back to us. And we'll make sure we share them with you and Robert and I, and we'll try and hammer something out so that in 2 weeks we meet Monday.
Third Monday.
Third Monday.
So yeah.
The 24th. Does that sound correct? Excuse me. On the 17th.
I was going to say 17th sounds familiar.
Yeah.
to
On
me.
the 17th, we would be able to formally recommend an agreement to the council, which we would then take to the council the following meeting. We agree to it the 17th. We could get it on the council agenda for approval on the 25th. I think that's correct.
Okay.
So our goal is that Tuesday, the 11th, it's on the council agenda to approve to allow us to move forward with the site, and then we would have the agreement in place, hopefully the following meeting on the 25th. And then if we have all the insurance in place, the city's going to have to do a little bit of, we definitely need to talk about insurance because our insurance.
No, we already have it. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll give
Okay.
you the certificate.
So we'll have to
of
talk about,
policy
yeah,
or
we'll look at
whatever.
all that.
When you're reading these lease and agreement, a lot of the stuff, if we're gonna do a temporary thing, if we're gonna do a temporary thing here, a lot of the lease provisions we flopped over into the agreement now, rather than vice versa. When we were over there, it was more of the lease,
Mhm.
less of the agreement. This one will be more of an agreement, less of the lease.
Yeah, I'll look, but I believe our insurance in fact exceeds what's
Yeah,
required.
no, I would hope so, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
we pay doctor level insurance just to have our
Yeah.
operation.
So, so then at that point, if everything lines up on the 25th, I want to, between now and then, we'll sit down with staff and again with Brock, and we'll iron out. Supply chain is still very much a consideration. So fencing and those kinds of things, some of the security measures, the cameras, and then even if you can get the cameras, getting somebody to come and install them, those kinds of things are problematic and challenging at this point in time. So I don't want to give an opening date yet until we can go through and get all that stuff hammered out. But we'll start working on those details and hopefully come up with Brock and have a fairly solid timeline.
And if this moves through on the 11th, we can start with the fencing and that kind of thing,
Correct.
right?
Yeah,
And
if
gates
the
and that
council
kind of
approves this on the 11th, then staff would sit down very soon thereafter and start hammering out and working with Brock on setup, design. Joe will draw up some stuff. We'll make sure everything we do is going to meet their needs. And then we would get going on that, and we'll
Okay.
keep everybody in the loop on that as well.
Thank you for that timeline. We really did need that. Anything else? Seeing no further business before us, I call this meeting adjourned.
thank you, everybody.